Lockdown beginning Boxing Day.
If we fail to take action now, the consequences could be catastrophic.
Premier Doug Ford ordering the shutdown of all non-essential businesses across Ontario as hospitalizations continue to surge. Plus,
they've indicated some changes that are coming to retail. I'm not sure they're enough.
How will the new measures affect Toronto, which is already in a lockdown? Reaction from city officials and what one expert thinks of the plan. And
you're still seeing this continuing sort of low-level growth.
The province also revealing new projections today showing where we're headed as hospitals warn of being overwhelmed. Good evening, I'm Kelda Yoon. We begin with breaking news from North York tonight, where 3 people have been rushed to hospital with stab wounds. Police were called to the area near Nymark Avenue and Goodview Road just before 9 o'clock. When they arrived on scene, they found a man with a knife. He was taken into custody. They also located 3 people who had been stabbed. They were all taken to hospital. Toronto paramedics tell us one of the victims, an elderly man, has life-threatening injuries. The other 2 victims, a man and a woman, have minor injuries. Well, it's official. A province-wide lockdown is just days away. Beginning on Boxing Day, only essential businesses like grocery stores and pharmacies will be allowed to stay open for in-person shopping. Other businesses will be limited to curbside pickup and delivery. Schools will also have extended winter breaks. Now, how long the lockdown will last depends on where you live. The North will go into lockdown for 2 weeks, ending January 9th. South of Sudbury, including the entire GTA, will be shut down for 28 days until at least January 23rd. Ford says the measures are needed province-wide to ensure hospitals and their ICUs are not overwhelmed in the new year. Chris Glover kicks us off tonight.
To prevent crowds leaving lockdown zones and flooding less restricted areas like here in Durham Region, now the whole province is being lumped in one sweeping shutdown.
If we fail to take action now, the consequences could be catastrophic.
In Toronto and Ontario regions already in lockdown, not much will change. Hardware stores and pet stores will no longer be deemed essential, joining retailers and restaurants already doing curbside pickup and delivery. Elementary schools will be closed for in-class learning until at least January 11th, and most high schools closed for in-person until January 25th.
I'm supportive of what the province is trying to do.
After just last Friday publicly urging the Premier to keep Durham in the red zone, the regional chair changed his tune over the weekend after word of a super contagious new strain of the virus in the UK.
From my perspective, the world's changed very quickly since Friday.
We have reached a tipping point.
The health minister says COVID patients are overwhelming some hospitals, and in places where counts are fewer, the concern is hospital resources are fewer too.
All of a sudden, with cases coming in, it picks up very fast, and some of those other areas have less resources to deal with that.
Ontario also announced small businesses who have seen a reduction of revenue over 20% can now apply for a support grant totaling up to $20,000.
We know that thousands of businesses have already shuttered, and the longer this goes, the more we will lose. The key is to try to limit the scarring as much as possible.
I've never believed in the police state.
Ford stopped short of introducing travel restrictions or curfews, but said the province-wide step would discourage everyone's mobility, especially after Quebec recently took a similar province-wide step.
Nothing against Quebecers. I love the Quebecers, but they'll come over in droves.
And just to put Ontario's dire situation into perspective, during the first wave of the pandemic, at its very peak, when things were so bad in Ontario that all elective surgeries and procedures had to be canceled, there were 264 COVID patients in ICUs. Well, as of this morning, there were 265. And the Premier fears that over the holidays, that might get even worse. Chris Glover, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto's mayor and top doctors say they fully support the Ontario-wide lockdown. The city reported 646 new cases of the virus today, the highest in the province. But Toronto is already in a lockdown, so what do the new measures mean for the city? And does more need to be done? Angelina King takes a look.
Toronto has been locked down for nearly a month, so the new provincial lockdown isn't going to feel that different. But some are hopeful sweeping restrictions will get people's attention.
Being provincial is just more consistent and clear. I mean, rather than having to go to multiple different local and regional and provincial sources to figure out what you can and cannot do, this is very clear top-down messaging that's being reinforced.
But Dr. Seema Marwaha says in order for it to work, there needs to be better testing and contact tracing.
Contact tracing really changes people's behaviors. If you know you've been exposed to someone with a known infection, you will more likely stay at home and restrict your activities.
There are 300 people in hospital with COVID-19 in Toronto and 86 in the ICU. The city also reported 9 more deaths today. The youngest person was 30 years old. The youngest admitted to hospital, just 11.
COVID-19 is surging dangerously here and all over the world.
Last month, Dr. Davila went above provincial measures and imposed tighter restrictions in Toronto. With questions about whether the new restrictions will make any real difference in regions already locked down, she was asked why she isn't doing that again now.
I did not actually say that I wouldn't do orders. I said that we actually have yet to see what the specific new terms are.
There are some changes. Schools are delaying in-person learning. The list of businesses deemed essential is narrowing slightly, and the ones allowed to open will be operating at a further reduced capacity of 25% down from 50%.
They've indicated some changes that are coming to retail. I'm not sure they're enough. We need to see these details, but I think there's no question this goes further in a number of the respects I've mentioned and probably more. And now it is, I think, over to personal behavior to try and take us the rest of the way there.
These new measures are in place until at least January 23rd. By then, Toronto will have been in a lockdown for 60 days. Angelina King, CBC News, Toronto.
Windsor is dealing with the second highest testing positivity rate in the province, according to today's modeling. The region went into a lockdown 1 week ago. Health officials say they want residents to take the measures more seriously.
We are calling something a lockdown. It better be a lockdown. That means people are forced to stay home to protect lives, to save lives everywhere. And that's what we are struggling. It's not a great feeling to sit in front here and report all these deaths that we're seeing in the community as a result of people not following those measures.
Windsor-Essex County reported 127 new cases of COVID-19 today. Officials say anything that doesn't need to be open should close immediately. Windsor Regional Hospital also received its first batches of the Pfizer vaccine today. They plan to administer the first shots tomorrow. Frontline workers at seniors facilities will be the first to get those shots. Now, some are criticizing the province-wide lockdown as coming too late. Ontario recorded more than 2,000 new COVID-19 cases for the 7th straight day. Today, scientific modelers showed us the benefits of hard lockdowns. Lorena Redekop has more on their projections and reactions.
It's unfathomable. It's reckless, reckless, reckless.
The head of the Registered Nurses Association can't believe the lockdown won't start until Boxing Day. That's as hospitals have warned they're already becoming overwhelmed. And today, modeling showed under any scenario, intensive care units will have more than 300 COVID patients by the end of December, 1,500 by mid-January if cases grow at a faster rate, like they did in England.
The damage will be more extensive, and we will need tougher lockdowns after that, and for longer time.
The modelers from the COVID-19 Science Advisory Table compared locking down today versus a week from now, showing even with zero growth, locking down today would mean 800 fewer cases by the end of the month and 11,000 fewer cases by the end of January.
So earlier, always earlier is better on this?
I would say obviously as soon as possible, but also giving time for people to prepare for the changes that are coming.
The Premier says he chose December 26th to give businesses time to prepare.
Get ready to hunker down. We can't do it overnight and leave these people with the inventory especially the restaurants with food inventory.
Why wait to December 26th? In between, you're going to have Christmas dinners, and that it's almost like allowing people to get your Christmas dinner in, your Christmas partying after under the wire.
The modelers looked at what they called hard lockdowns, like in France and Australia in their second waves. Slightly different, but with only essential businesses open, strong gathering controls, and unlike this lockdown, curfews. They showed the impact of both 4- and 6-week hard lockdowns. With the longer one, cases could dip to less than 1,000 a day by early February. That type of lockdown would look more like Ontario in the spring versus the increased traffic now. Lorenda Redekop, CBC News, Toronto.
Toronto police say they're now investigating a fatal hit-and-run on Friday as a targeted attack.
Mr. Rosen, we believe, just finished his day at work here, entered the underground parking lot. The suspect was waiting for Mr. Rosen, and at that point the incident did occur.
52-year-old Scott Andrew Rosen was killed after being struck by a U-Haul truck Friday evening. It happened in a parking garage near Mount Pleasant and Eglinton. Rosen worked at a commercial litigation law firm in the building. Police say they're looking for surveillance footage from the area and are asking any witnesses to come forward. Closing arguments begun today in the trial of Adam Strong, the Toronto man accused of murdering 2 young women in Oshawa. The court finished hearing evidence last week. Strong is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the killing of 18-year-old Rory Hache, who went missing in August of 2017. Her torso was found in the Oshawa Harbor a month later. And he's also for the murder of 19-year-old Candace Fitzpatrick, who was last seen in 2008. The charges were laid in 2018 after DNA of the 2 victims were found in Strong's basement apartment. Closing statements are slated to continue in the coming days.
As Canadians, we are not safe until all of our communities are safe.
After the break, a Toronto doctor is making it her mission to ensure some of our most vulnerable frontline workers stay protected during this second wave. More on the Masking Together challenge coming up. And
a mild start to winter, but snow is just around the corner and just in time for Christmas. Your full forecast after the break.
A Toronto family physician is making it her mission to ensure our frontline workers are protected. Dr. Elaine Chin launched the Masking Together Challenge during the first wave of the pandemic, partnering with U of T to raise money to buy essential PPE for those working in hospitals. Well, now in this second wave, she's focusing on another important and vulnerable group. I tagged along during one of her drop-offs. Dr. Elaine Chin remembers being on the front lines of SARS almost 20 years ago.
I was in a hospital that had a lot of SARS, and all the emotion flushed back into my brain about how we were so scared, how we were thankful that we had our masks and we had our shields, and then to watch my colleagues in hospitals begging for shields and masks, I just felt that I needed to do something. So that's how Masking Together Challenge came to be.
This was back in March, Chin raising almost $200,000 to buy PPE for hospital healthcare workers. This month, she launched part 2 of the campaign, this time focusing on what she calls the invisible front line, those working in shelters.
They're not going to be the ones who are going to be front of line getting vaccines. So, guess what the most important vaccine is right now? It's those masks, it's those hand sanitizers, it's the facial shields.
Thank you. One of the places receiving PPE is Dixon Hall, which provides services and programs for vulnerable communities in Toronto's East End.
They will be used by workers, but they'll also be used by our client population as well.
Boxes are also being shipped to shelters in other provinces, including BC, Alberta, Manitoba, and New Brunswick.
There's shelters that take care of the youth, to domestic violence and women's shelters, and certainly shelters for vulnerable communities who live on the street. So far, we've distributed about $100,000 worth of PPE in the last 2 weeks, and we're not finished. It just takes you back to being a family doctor, your grassroots to understanding that there are vulnerable communities, and you can just pretend they don't exist. But during this COVID, I've always said that as Canadians, we are not safe until all of our communities are safe.
The Great Turkey Giveaway usually sees dozens of people lining up outside of Freeman Real Estate to receive a free holiday turkey. The brokerage had to change the annual event this year to keep it COVID safe, but they've still found a way to help those in need safely.
We've organized with our co-sponsors, Fiesta Farms and Spirit of Math Schools, to buy a tremendous amount of groceries that will be given out to 3 organizations who are tied to the community, and I have identified families who need the food over the holidays.
Those 3 organizations, St. Albans Boys and Girls Club, St. Peter's Church, and Beth Shalom Synagogue. Organizers hope the festive shop will provide food to between 60 and 100 families. And a reminder, our Sounds of the Season fundraiser is running until the end of the year. So far, you've helped to raise more than $900,000 for GTA food banks. And that's wonderful news because with the pandemic, the need is even greater this year. You can find out how to donate at cbc.ca/sots. And it was a bit wet this evening. We saw some rain earlier. The cloudy periods will continue through the overnight. Let's go now to our meteorologist, Nick Sirkovich. Pretty gloomy day, Nick, but the temperatures were definitely warmer than what we're used to.
Well, Calda, it is a mild way to kick off winter as temperatures were up around 4 degrees this afternoon. That's 4 degrees above the seasonal mark. And they're expected to stay there for the next couple of days. You look at our weather headlines, and that is number 1. But if you look down toward the bottom there's the chance for a white Christmas. We're going to talk about that in your long-range forecast, and that is all tied into this sort of mixed day on Thursday. Yeah, today, as I mentioned, temperatures up to 4 degrees. Basically, all of southern Ontario really up above the seasonal mark. There are a few flurries down in southwestern Ontario. As this whole system sort of treks along, it is basically dissipating. Look for the risk of a few flurries tonight across the GTA. Same story for tomorrow as well, but about a 30-40% chance of some light isolated flurries. By later tomorrow, things start to clear out. And then as we head into Wednesday, this is actually a warm front that's pushing through. And what's going to happen here is we'll get a bit of a push of southerly air. That's going to pump up temperatures just a little bit more, also a bit more in the way of humidity. And then in behind it, we've got this front. It's actually a pretty sharp front coming in. Now, the timing is not perfect on it yet, but coming in sometime Wednesday night through Thursday. So Thursday, we're actually going to start out with rain, and then we're going to shift over to snowfall as temperatures drop pretty quickly on Thursday. So there is a chance for some good rainfall on Thursday sort of morning, but then by the afternoon we're looking at about 2, maybe 4 centimeters of snow, and that should stick around as we head into Friday, Christmas Day, because the temperatures are going to be so cold. Here's a look at tonight, 2 degrees down in southwestern Ontario, light flurries, wet flurries across the region. As we head through tomorrow, 4 degrees, and again, that is above the seasonal mark. As we head through the Golden Horseshoe, we're looking at temperatures that are going to hover around that -2 mark. So a little bit cooler around the Golden Horseshoe. Wind chill values anywhere from about -7 to -9. Now, not a lot in the way of winds, but it doesn't take much to drop those wind chills. Tomorrow, isolated flurries, temperatures to about 3-4 degrees. So very similar to what we had today. Mainly cloudy skies and the chance for a few isolated flurries. So no real precipitation to speak of here as we head through tomorrow. Same story into Wednesday as well. There's that push of warmer air, temperatures to 5 degrees Wednesday overnight, an overnight low of +2. But Thursday's where it gets interesting. This is Christmas Eve. We've got rainfall coming through, and the amounts are varied. It really depends on the timing, but we're going to start the day with wet weather, switch over to snowfall as temperatures drop, -7 through the overnight on Thursday, wind chills in the -teens, and then Friday, this snowfall is going to stick around. We wake up to temperatures in the low single digits, mix of sun and cloud, but we should see that snowfall on the ground for the 25th. Kelda.
Thanks so much, Nick.
The weather is brought to you by Trane, the most reliable heating and cooling brand. We test, so it runs. It's hard to stop a train.
Coming up, her Olympic dreams were dashed in a brutal fall. Now her company is on Oprah's favorite things list.
And I remember the day where we had to send our package to Gail King in Oprah's home, and I just kissed them and I'm like, please make this happen.
We'll spill the tea after the break. 12 years after a gymnastics accident dashed her Olympic dreams and left her paralyzed, a Toronto woman has found a new calling. Actually, Taylor Lindsay Noel was thinking about throwing in the towel on her small business when she got an early Christmas surprise. The founder of Cup of Tea was put on Oprah's favorite things list. Nazima Walji has more.
We are pumping out 80 plus 100 plus orders a day.
So 50 grams is approximately like 20 cups of tea.
Taylor Lindsay Noel oversees her small team, weighing, packaging, and filling orders of her luxury loose leaf teas and accessories.
It's been very, very hectic and we've grown quite quickly.
At the start of the year, the entrepreneur thought about shutting down her business, but an email made her think twice.
I wake up to an email from someone who says they're from Oprah's team, and I thought it was a joke, and I deleted it, and an hour later I couldn't let it go, and I opened it back up again.
So this will be a holiday season unlike any other.
Oprah Winfrey's team was starting to curate items for the most coveted list of the year, Oprah's favorite things, and asked Lindsay Noel for a sample.
And I remember the day where we had to send our package to Gayle King in Oprah's home, and I just kissed them and I'm like, please make this happen. That I was on pins and needles because once they reach out, it doesn't mean that you're on the list. It's weeks and weeks of testing, sending product, them going back and forth, multiple rounds, and there's no guarantee.
This is the chai tea, right?
It is. It's our Cha-Cha Chai, which is one of Oprah's favorites. And it has black tea, ginger, organic cinnamon, organic vanilla bean.
Oh yeah, that's really good.
What I was told, it was the tea that sold her on the entire set.
Cup of Tea got Oprah's stamp of approval.
And I remember telling my mom, and she was just over the moon because Oprah has been a huge part of our life. I remember going and rushing home to watch her on TV with my mom.
The rest is what they call the Oprah effect.
We recently are supplying some teas for Steven Spielberg's office. I got to do an event with Secretary Hillary Clinton. It's all virtual this year.
And this year we're celebrating Black-owned businesses and the people behind them.
I'm Black, I'm female, I'm disabled, but I'm hoping that through my example we can continue to break glass ceilings and show that there are so many different types of entrepreneurs.
This opportunity for Lindsay Noel came at the right time.
12 years ago, I had a really devastating fall off the high bar when I was a gymnast, and unfortunately when that happened, I broke my neck and severed my spinal cord, instantly paralyzing me.
Now she's looking forward to growing her tea business. Nazima Walji, CBC News, Toronto.
And that's our show for you tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you back here tomorrow night at 11. Have a great night, everyone.